you, so thank you for coming.
If two of you leave, though, then
we actually now we know your faces and
I'll go sit in the audience and balance it out.
So to my right is, well, to my far right is Chip Kidd.
Ooh.
Graphic designer, editor-at-large, vice president, Pantheon, and Knopf, and amazing graphic designer. And to my right is Michael Cho.
Who's not vice president of anything.
He's his own CEO. Right? So go through a little bit. You have the slides here, and sort of let me talk a little bit. You can see, talk a little bit about just overview of your career, and then we'll get into the Veracity Trap.
You want to start?
Well, I think the first slides are. It starts with.
Oh, okay.
These are the slides from San Diego. Oh yeah, you can see them.
Yes. So I'm Michael Cho. I am a cartoonist and illustrator and author, but I just generally put all that under cartoonist. And I met Chip years ago when DC contacted me and asked me, do you want to draw a Batman story? It was, the editor at the time was Mark Chiarello, and I said no, because, and he asked me why, and I said, well, David Mazzucchelli did the best Batman, and I would just copy his. So there's nothing I could add to writing and draw a Batman story. And then a month later, he contacted me and said, would you draw a Batman story? And Chip Kidd wrote it. And I said, oh, hell yeah. And I was like, what's this for? And he was like, oh, it's for Batman Black and White. And I said, yeah, absolutely, I would do that. And so Chip and I met, and he wrote this wonderful Batman story that was very heartfelt about Robin losing Batman. And that was the basis of our friendship. And we found out that we worked very well together.
Indeed.
And then after that, I was working at Marvel, and you may know my stuff from such things as covers for Marvel Comics, DC Comics. I do a lot of retro type stuff for them, for their collections, as well as more modern variant work. And then Chip and I had a graphic novel at the time that I was 60% of the way finished. And Chip, being the head at Pantheon, asked me if you have something you wish to pitch to us, I'd be happy to look at it. And I said, funnily enough, and Chip put out my graphic novel, Shoplifter.
Which is a wonderful, wonderful book. I definitely highly recommend it. It's how you hooked into that world and made it so believable. Like it revolves around advertising and advertising for young people. It's brilliantly done.
And do you have more like that you're doing, like that's your own story, your own world?
Yeah, initially, like, I come from an awkwardly weird background, but I found that some of my heroes were the same, in that I love indie comics, I love comics as just a storytelling medium to tell regular non-superhero, non-genre drama, but I also have a real need to draw superheroes punching each other in the face. And that's both sides to me. And when I was younger, I thought that I'd have to pick one track or the other, that I'd either have to become teeth gritted and muscles popping superhero artist, or I'd have to write stories about working at a bookshop and having a crush on the girl who works at the Starbucks across the street. And then when I saw some of my other artistic heroes as the generation shifted, I saw that they were like me, that they crossed both. They did things across the spectrum of comics, whether it was superhero, whether it was sci-fi, whether it was just straight drama. And so I decided to stick in both. And then I do have other books planned that I just have never gotten around to.
Yeah, that's because you keep taking on these other assignments from editors who call you.
Yeah, that's what my wife says. That's exactly what. When are you going to do something for yourself? And I have all these notes, and I go, when this is done, and then it takes forever.
And we're going to talk about their collaboration in a minute. But Chip, if you want to just sort of give an overview, this is.
I have been an art director and graphic designer at Alfred A. Knopf Publishing, mainly for book covers, for now over 39 years. I was hired as an 8-year-old. Child labor law. And so, I mean, over the years, I've designed covers for all kinds of authors. Haruki Murakami's there, Augustin Burroughs, and of course, somebody named Michael Crichton. It's interesting, as Mike saying, like across the board, like at this point, I've designed covers for like Nobel Prize winners, but I've also designed covers for Batman. Like, and I get a total kick out of doing both things. I call it pluralism.
I thought you were going to say I do covers for Nobel Prize winners and Michael Cho. I was waiting.
No, I was trying to think, what's the opposite of a Nobel Prize?
That's me. I am nominated for Nobel Prize in Physics this year, by the way, because I managed to balance all my Jenga upside down.
You know who else wants a Nobel Prize?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't think of it.
I haven't heard anybody in the news.
No. Chip's written a bunch of books. These are several of the ones that you've written, and that are not licensed by Marvel or DC.
Right.
Cheese Monkeys was your first novel.
What is the sequel to that?
The sequel is
The Learners in the middle, but you have another one that
I'm
talking about.
We'll see. We'll
Okay.
see. The Go book is a book to teach graphic design to kids, and then the bottom two are monographs I published with Rizzoli.
And then this. So Chip and I met in the early 90s when I was an editor at DC Comics. He worked on a book together called Batman Animated. And then we worked on this next. Well, was this next? Yes, because we did Mythology with Alex Ross, and then this 365 book, which was a series that we had done in this format, and we licensed to DC. And thanks to Chip, that's how I came to Abrams, was working on this book together. Working with you on that. And then he designed the logo for Abrams ComicArts, which is the logo on the bottom. And we've done a bunch of books together. Some licensed stuff with DC and Marvel. A lot of Peanuts book, including the one on the right that's brand new, that just came out for the 75th anniversary. I don't know if I didn't even tell you, we were on the Today Show this morning.
I heard that.
Yeah, so I have a little video. They did a nice shout out for the book and talked about it. And then in the course of the last 3 years, I've been working at Abrams for 20 years now. I gave Alex Ross his first job when I was at DC in 1993 before Marvels came out. And he was working on a Fantastic Four book for Marvel, which was going to be 4 issues or 3 issues. And it turned out that they weren't really the kind of publisher who could do a 64-page, 8.5 by 11 book, which is what he wanted to do. So he called me up one night grumbling that Marvel was going to do this, but now they can't, you should publish it. And because I had a license at Marvel, he thought it would be easy, and it actually it was relatively easy because, but it wasn't like I could just do it. I had to go to Marvel and pitch them the idea of original graphic novels. And for the first time, Marvel is letting another publisher publish original graphic novels, which are the ones that you see here: Fantastic Four, Superheroes Dream.
I don't think I ever asked you, why do you think they caved?
I think, well, it was the anniversary of the FF, and they had this book from Alex that they really wanted, but again, he envisioned it as a hardcover. They envisioned it as comics. So I think that they didn't want to disappoint Alex, but also Abrams has been publishing books with Marvel since, I think, it was the Les Daniels book, 5 Fabulous Decades, that came out in, I think, 89 or something like that. So we had a long history with Marvel. We've been publishing, books, and I'm currently publishing a lot of books with Marvel. So it's just, I charm them, I guess. And they're afraid. I charm them, and Alex, they're afraid about this. So we were working on this line and developing it, and then I called Chip one day to talk about what became this book. What, from your point of view, how did that go?
So, Charlie and I, besides being best friends, are great colleagues. We work together, it seems like nonstop for
Yeah.
the last like 15, 20 years. And so when this line, Marvel Arts, was going to come out, and Alex sent his Fantastic Four book, Charlie said, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Charlie basically said, would you want to do one? Would you want to write one? And I wasn't going to say no, but it wasn't like I had any deep burning story to tell about any of the Marvel characters. So I don't know, like, did you think of the Avengers, or did
No, you didn't. I just gave you, like, you know, which character would you do, or what would you want to do?
And there's this old adage that if you give somebody too many, if you give a client too many choices, they're not going to choose anything. And so for myself, I had to start distilling it, like what interests me. And for some reason, I arrived at the Avengers at the beginning. We never say it's 1964, but that's the era. And by then, I mean, of course, I was a huge fan of Mike's, but Mike had been posting his convention drawings on his Instagram. And they were, a lot of them, like the Iron Man with the fins on his face, like, I had been seeing these in succession and thinking, I love these. I absolutely love these. And I thought, and I think I said to Charlie, I think like Michael Cho, the Avengers, and what do you think? And he said, oh, okay. But I said, you know, I'm gonna cold call Mike and just see if this is anything that he would be interested in doing. And you said...
I would call this slightly different.
Okay.
I remember Chip called me out of the blue and said, hey, Abrams is going to put out a line of graphic novels. Have you seen that Alex Ross Fantastic Four book? And I said, yeah, that thing's fantastic, you know. And Chip said, I was hoping, I talked to Charlie, and I'm going to write one. And you said, what would you like to do at Marvel? And I had said, well, I was thinking of the Avengers because I had just had a pitch with Marvel that featuring the original Avengers. And it was sort of in limbo at the time. It was like it was going to go, and then it was like it was stuck in limbo. And so I was like, well, that's been on my brain, so I would like to do something, a story featuring the original Avengers. And you told me at that time, it was like, because I was seeing your covers for the Marvel Masterwork series and these drawings of your Marvel superheroes, and I was thought, you know, you'd be the right person for this kind of project. So, what would you want to do? And I said, how about the Avengers? So, and then, if I recall correctly, you wrote a hilariously crazy bonkers pitch, and it was like he sent it to me, and it was 2 pages, and it was nuts. It was this story, but the ending wasn't quite worked out, but it featured all the Marvel superheroes by the end. It was like, oh, Spider-Man's in it, Black Panther shows up, and the X-Men shows up.
I totally forgot that, yeah.
Yeah, and then Charlie, being the proper editor that he is, was like, no, we need the hero's name on the front, and you can't have, you know, the Avengers and the X-Men and the Black Panther and Spider-Man. It should just feature the Avengers. And so he focused us, because we're kind of wacky that way. And then you went off to write it. You want to tell them about the writing, or should?
Yeah, so that's right. I did this 2-page pitch, and it always was called the Veracity Trap, and that it's true. At the end, somehow everybody was just going to show up. I don't know how that would have worked, but so I refined the pitch. And the basic premise is that there are 2 realms. There's this realm where we are right now, which is reality, but there's the Marvel Comics realm, which is on the page, and it's in 2 dimensions, and those characters think that's real. They think what's happening in the story is real, and that they are real. And so what if Loki was able to somehow create a portal that would take you from the one realm into the other, so that if he could get into our realm and write their stories, he could completely control the Marvel Universe. And so that was kind of the pitch. But I remember at the end of the pitch, it's like, oh, and they figure it all out, and it's the end. And a premise is really easy to come up with. A 64-page script, kind of not so much. But I was taken with this old Looney Tunes cartoon called Duck Amok, and somebody's shaking their head. And this was, I mean, the cartoon itself, I guess, was from the 50s, but I would have seen it on TV when I was like 8 or something. And it's Daffy Duck, and all of these weird things are happening to him. Like, the backgrounds are changing, and he's dressed like a flower, and all this stuff, insane stuff just goes on for 5 minutes or whatever it is. And at the end, he sort of like completely loses his mind and is screaming up at whoever is drawing and writing this story, and the camera pulls back, and it's Bugs Bunny. So Bugs Bunny was putting him through all of this. And I was always fascinated by that concept. So that is sort of a bit of what happens in this. But I also became enamored of those old Kirby monsters that he used to publish through Marvel before Fantastic Four #1. And they had all these goofy names, and they just mostly looked like big blobs of mud. And so I started doing research on the different monsters, and I'm like, okay, it'll open with like a big battle with the Avengers and these monsters, which would be like really fun. And Loki is leading the monsters and is hiding something. He's guarding something that he doesn't want them to find. And Thor finds it, and it's like this tomb-like thing. And inside it is this glowing white orb. And Loki says, stay away from that, that's the Veracity Vortex, you have no idea of its power. Which of course was an invitation to just that, and so Thor throws his hammer into it to destroy it, and not only does he not destroy it, the hammer doesn't come back. So he has to go in after it. And so when he does, which you see there on the right, the comic page itself is becoming undone. So you're going from color to inking to penciling to and then to nothing, and then just to white, and then we reversed it on the other
when he comes back.
When he comes back, and when he comes back and he has the hammer, he's absolutely distraught, like just holding his hands in his head, like and then the rest of the team is like, well, what's wrong? And he says, by the gods, we are not real. And what follows is a soliloquy that we worked very hard on, which basically, the challenge was, how would a Shakespearean character describe on stage the process of making a comic book in 1964? And it's very, I think, it's
hilarious.
It's very funny, and like, we aren't even in register, and I don't even know what that means, and we're only available in drugstores and newsstands, and somebody writes what we say, and somebody else then draws in pencil, and then somebody in ink goes over the pencil, but they are not mere tracers. Everybody seems to love that line. And so the rest of the group is like, what are you talking about? And Captain America says, well, there's only one way to find out. And so then they all go through it and end up in Michael's studio.
Which is not that big, but
it had
to accommodate giant.
Right. And they're stunned and like, you know, and we're stunned, and at first we just think this is some sort of elaborate trick, and then we see the Wasp flying around, and she's looking on. Then she looks on Mike's drawing table. She said, "There it is. That's the Veracity Vortex. These two created it." And so I think Thor says, well, if you created it, then only you can destroy it, and you're coming with us. And so he pulls us back into the Marvel world. And when we go through the Veracity Vortex, we come out the other side as 10-year-olds, because that's truly who we are inside. And so even though we have the knowledge of adults or whatever, our forms are the forms of children. And it sort of goes on from there. And
it's about the Avengers, essentially. It's a fun story about the Avengers, dealing with the fact that they are created constructs made by authors and illustrators. So, how do they deal with that? And then also featuring lots of Marvel monsters, punching monsters, kicking monsters in the face, throwing shields at monsters. The whole triple tackles, 3 of them. There's lots of fight scenes, there's lots of action, and it's hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen Mike's covers for Marvel for years, and I loved them. But I love the way he handles sequential art. Like if there's a fight scene, I want to be able to see every move. How is this working? And I got a taste of that on the Batman story we did, but that was only 10 pages. And so I was thinking, all right, let's give Mike 20 pages for this battle, and just like if the script said, okay, Mike, go crazy. Like that's all what the script said. And but I was also adamant though about introducing each of the Avengers characters with a Mighty Marvel pinup, which I had always loved as a kid.
So there's lots of callbacks. There's little Easter eggs like this, because when Chip wrote the script, Chip writes in a very, very unique method. Most comic writers send a script. He sends it laid out, page layout with panels, and it's done in InDesign, because of course it is. And it has like descriptions and little attachments of JPEGs of, this is what I'm thinking it should look like or something. And it's impossible to work from because it's not as scripted. It's something. It's like it's kind of a thumbnail, but not. But the great thing about working with Chip was he was like at the beginning he said, so do you have any requirements or any things that you want me to do when I'm writing this? And I told him, yeah, keep this to 4 to 6 panels per page maximum, and let's try to avoid 9-panel grids, and that way I can add or subtract panels as needed for action or flow or for pacing. And then I said, also, I want as many splash pages and as 2-page spreads as possible if we're going to do fight scenes, because I had been drawing a lot of short stories, and it was always felt like I'm trying to write an epic in a phone booth. And It was like I would like some panels to spread out. I love to do like more 2-page spreads and such. And God bless you, it was loaded with that.
They're so easy to write.
But yeah, you had an artistic conceit when you were doing this, when you started, in terms of Kirby.
Oh yeah. Whenever I draw this era of Marvel characters, I'm always thinking about Jack Kirby because he was my single biggest influence on superhero comics, particularly like any Marvel superhero. If I'm drawing Captain America, that's the Captain America I see in my head. That's what I'm channeling through my hands and such. So. Chip did have a couple of interesting requirements along the way. One of them was Iron Man must have fins. And,
yeah, we had to do the fin.
And I had originally sent in the drawings with him with that period accurate Iron Man, and Chip was like, no, he must have the fins. And I was like, you know what, okay, we'll do that. But I knew it was like the little continuity stickler in me was like, you know, Iron Man only had the fins for like 2 issues, and at that time, you know, Hulk was part of the team, and Captain America wasn't really part of the team either, so it doesn't really fit. But you know what? I'm not that biggest continuity stickler, so I was like, okay, let's go for this, right? However, the biggest continuity stickler in the world is a man named Alex Ross, and
who was the executive editor.
And so
He's the series curator.
yeah, so he and I was trying to explain to him, and he was like, but it's not accurate. And I was like, look, we're not trying to make 1964 Marvel comics. We're trying to create the feel of 1964 comics. You know, we're not going to put little ads in there for Grit newspapers and the 1,000 toy soldiers you could get in the box.
We thought about it.
Yeah, we did think about that. Actually, we did do some ideas like that. But I was trying to explain it, and was like, this is a love letter to those comics. This is not an attempt to recreate those comics or to continue on the stories, you know, following the loose threads of those comics. What we're trying to create is the same feel you would get from those, only we're all much older and the book is much pricier than 12 cents, you know, and it's certainly bigger, but it's a deluxe format. But, you know, the feel is what we're going for, the joy that you have from reading those adventures for the first time where anything can happen. And that was the mandate that I kept in my head, because that's what Chip was aiming for as I was drawing this. And the purest way for me to channel that is to just think about Jack Kirby and how awesome his comics were, particularly that era, the early Marvel. I don't own, even though I am a freelance cartoonist, I don't own any toys. I have no Funko Pops. I have no action figures. I know that's shocking. It shocks a lot of people.
Because I have a Galactus lunchbox.
What's that?
You have a Galactus lunchbox.
That doesn't count. That's my like art kit. That's where I'm keeping that. But I have one item that is merch, I guess, and it's a statue of Jack Kirby. And I've had this, and it sits above my drafting table. And every once in a while, when I'm stuck, I'm like, Jack, what would you do? You know? And on this one, I would just look up and I would like, did my best, Jack. Did my best. I think you'd like it. I'm doing my best. You know, this is for you. You know, so that was my thinking throughout the whole drawing of this.
I'm biased, but I think you did a great job, because I think part of the goal of this series that we're doing at Marvel Arts is, if you've never read a Marvel comic, or you've never read an Avengers comic, or a Fantastic Four, that you have everything you need to know in this book. Who they are. There's not beholden to continuity or you know, that we can't do this or that. Marvel has given us a lot of leeway. We work with an amazing team. If anybody knows the work of Tom Brevoort, who is the
great,
really probably the best editor I've ever worked with in comics.
But he will not let you kill the Marvel monsters.
No, can't do that.
Chip initially wrote a sequence where the Wasp hideously murders several of these monsters by flying through the brain.
Yeah. Well, in the very first Avengers story, and this always stuck with me as a kid as well. Like they're trying to calm the Hulk down, and you know, none of them is a match for the Hulk. But she gets the idea. The Wasp flies into his ear.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know what she does in there, but like it drives him crazy.
Yes, inner ear.
As his inner ear, and it's like, yes, that's so brilliant. Like that's how you would defeat the Hulk. It's like flying into his head.
He gets vertigo.
And so yes, she was gonna like fly through their brains and
out the other ear.
And out the other, in one ear and out the other. And Tom was like, no, no, no. Well, everybody was like, no,
Yeah.
no, no. And you didn't want to do it. So, so what she does do is she flies in one nostril and flies out the other.
Which is actually worse.
And that subdues the monsters that she and Hank are fighting. And after she flies out of their noses, she's covered in goo and utters the line, "Oh my God, that's the second most disgusting thing I've ever done." And I kept thinking, I kept waiting for somebody to strike that line out. Like, I'm like, that line's just not going to survive because it's just, they'll say it's too suggestive. But it's in there.
Yeah, we didn't have any problems with that. I mean, I think the killing thing, because the monsters have to be back in another issue or another graphic novel or whatever.
And I was totally wrong. I think the way we went is much better because, and then they come back in the real world, and now they're, even harder to deal with. And yes, I was wrong about that.
I had to draw the Wasp covered head to toe in monster snot. Just, that's my life. That's what I had to tell my son that day. What did you do, Daddy? I was like, well, I drew the Wasp covered in monster snot.
I like your serious profession.
And I have to hand it to Mike. Like the opening battle sequence is great, but then the rest of it, like if you read this script and tried to figure out how to draw it, like I'm like, I don't know how he's going to do this, and he figured it out. But I very much wanted, like, every time a character would go through this vortex, that the printing process would become undone until it's white, and then when they go back, it's white and then pencil and then ink and then color. And he had to figure out.
That wasn't hard. That one wasn't hard because you just showed me the Moral Velocity book.
Right.
And then I was like, okay, I know what to do here. I had to keep my pencils, I had to keep my thumbnails, I had to keep my pencils, I had to keep my inks, I had to keep the colors, and then overlay them and erase them so that until they faded out one to the other. The odd one was the one that's on this page, where one of the solutions to beating the monsters later on is the Avengers use something called the deregistration beam, which deregisters the colors on the comic page. And Chip described it as, okay, so the 4 plates of CMYK or whatever printing process back then was separate and split apart, and that causes the monsters to be split apart, and then they lose it and they get wiped out or something. And I was like, how the hell am I going to do that? And my thinking, was, oh, I'll let the colorist solve that one, right? I'll just do the ink, and then some colorist will solve that. And then midway through the book, I decided I'm going to color this, and then I realized I kicked myself because I was like, oh God, I got to solve that one.
And we had those first 2 panels on the right reversed, if you remember, you were the one who realized.
Yeah. Because I was following the script that it was just slightly coming back and in, yeah.
Right.
That was being a stickler. But there you go, that's the deregistration beat. So if you ever want to know the secret to beating the Marvel monsters, particularly Orgo and, I'm trying to remember, okay, that's Thor, because I had to do, Chip wrote so many Marvel monsters into this, and I am unfortunately the kind of Marvel fan that only know Fin Fang Foom and Gugam, Son of Goom, just because that was a funny title. So I had to do research, and I had to find out, one, do these monsters actually talk? Like, can they actually speak English? Are they really a monster, or is it a man trapped in a monster body, and I wish that I could be human again? Or is he an alien conqueror who is exceptionally intelligent, and therefore humans you must bow down before Rod, right? And also have to figure out the scale, that how big is Gigantus? Is he that gigantic, Is he bigger than Fin Fang Foom? And so forth. So I actually learned quite a bit about these monsters. I actually suggested a few after, because I was
Yes, you did.
Because sometimes you like, and this monster, I was like, actually, that's a human scientist. I read the story. That's a human scientist that it gets turned into a monster, and then he's not a bad guy in any way, and he actually talks in full English, so you can't have him just go raw, right? And so I was like, but can I suggest, Serpo, who is a lizard character that was born from the atomic radiation, and he can't talk, and so forth.
Yes, so two grown men have other lives, suddenly, are discussing these monsters. And the whole process was very interesting to me because I was a DC kid growing up. And then, became an everything kid. But I felt like I knew the Marvel world pretty well.
No, you did a good job on
No,
that. Well, the ending is what we should talk about.
Well,
talk about notes. The only, and I will say that Marvel is really great, and even Alex, in terms of the notes, because for the most part, everybody that's working on these books loves the characters. So nobody's trying to subvert or do anything that's going to be, anything that's, against the rules or whatever. Nobody's trying to undermine the characters.
Nazi Thor.
Right, exactly.
That's my thought.
But I think with the ending, we were stuck because it's one of those things where you sort of trap yourself into, you put yourself in a box.
No, we were not stuck for an ending. We were stuck for page count. Because this book was hard set to be 64 pages, and even looking at Chip's script, he was like, well, I came in at 84. I mean, so Charlie would give us 20 extra pages, I'm sure, right? And then,
I would have easily given you 20 extra pages, but Michael couldn't do it in time.
there was no way I could draw 20 extra
Right.
pages.
Right.
Yeah. And so we worked out various different solutions for how to cram the ending in, and at one point, Chip came up with the idea of like a 4-page gatefolds, pull-out end paper, so that the story would continue on the end paper. This is like, and it was so wild that he had to make a video explaining. So this is how it would fold out, and so this is the page, this is the verso, and then it folds out like this. And I was like, that is the nuttiest thing. We should do that. We should talk about this, the little inside baseball stuff about this, like the jacket, the hidden stuff inside this book. This book is designed to the gills because we have the world-class designer here. So there is tons of hidden stuff. For example,
so that at the 11th hour, I asked Charlie, "Can we print on the other side of the jacket for color?" And he said, "Well, I'll have to find out," because of course, like, every penny has to be accounted for. But he came back and said, "Yes, we can do that." And so the jacket's reversible, and when you reverse it, you get these big dynamic heads of the characters, which is like, over the years, like, that's one of my design signatures, actually, on comic book covers and what have you. Like, you can't go wrong with a big head. But I was also insistent that the story would start on the front end papers and end on the rear end papers. And
you're really getting your money's worth here.
well, yeah, I mean, I think, like, as a book designer, whenever I see blank end papers, it just makes me crazy. Like,
You've drilled that into me as a publisher, and I work with people on it. And I remember your answer to it. It was like, so the end papers are what glue the book from the inside to the casing, the hardcover. So end paper, you don't have end papers in a paperback because there's no,
right.
it's glued differently. And then I work with a lot of people who do, and you see it a lot, end papers are just white or a color. And now when I do books, there's different end papers in the front and the back. And I asked you why you did that, and you said, because I can. And it's like, the ability to change the front end papers and the back, they don't have to be the same. You have an ability, and as you told me years ago, every part of a book is an opportunity to tell a different part of that story.
Yes.
The spine,
Yes.
the flaps, the case, this is the image under the jacket. So that we try to use all that, the copyright page. I don't have all the pages here, but we're selling the book at our table. But if you remember, this whole concept came about out of Diamond. Remember,
Well,
the plan was we were going to do variant covers with all these giant heads, and we wanted.
At one point, we wanted to do variant covers for a hardcover book. Like, consider how crazy that is.
So there would be 6 covers, and Ant-Man and Giant Man were, and Ant-Man and Wasp were on one cover. We'd print fewer of those, so that would be harder to get, which means people would buy it. It was a way we kept thinking to sell more, and Diamond didn't like that idea, and they had a special request of a big, all-encompassing, every Avenger, whatever, for the variant cover that they would carry. And at that point, Michael was trying his best to get the book done. And I was like, I'm not going to have that conversation with Michael and ask him to do a new cover for Diamond that has like 50 million characters. I don't even think he would have answered that. Just
That would have done.
So we couldn't do the variant covers, and then that's where your idea of printing it on the side and doing it.
And everybody with OCD and small wallets thanks you for not doing that.
Yes.
Because 6 variant covers for a hardcover book, wow.
Yeah.
That said, though, Chip is exactly correct in that the end papers are part of the story. So therefore, the actual story starts on the front end papers.
Under the
front flap.
There's a hidden word balloon, that's the start, and the end papers of this book are the start of another story. So it goes from wall to wall. The story starts on literally as soon as you open the book on the end papers before you get to the credits, and it doesn't end. It starts a whole new adventure on the end papers.
Never ending, as they say. Does anybody have a question?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, on one of the slides showing the different, projects from Abrams with the Fantastic Four and stuff, there was an X-Men and a Thor, so are those upcoming releases?
Yeah, so X-Men is a book by John Byrne called Elsewhere. It's a book that, when he finished X-Men, he decided he wanted for his own entertainment to finish the story the way he would have done it, writing and illustrating it. So he did, I think it's 31 issues that he just wrote and illustrated himself. And one day when Alex Ross and I were talking, Alex suggested that I check it out and maybe we could figure out a way to actually publish that and get it finished. So I called Marvel and they said if you can get John Byrne to say yes, then that would be then sure. I didn't have that contact with John, but one of the editors who works with me, Chris Rael, has a really great relationship with John and has been working with him for a long time and convinced him to do it. So that's coming out in spring. It's the first of 3 volumes. And then the Thor one, which is next, is Eric Powell. And he is literally not at the show because he is working on the last pages of that.
Daddy's telling you.
Yes. And it's amazing. And it's a classic Thor story. It looks like Thor meets the Goon, which I love. And this covers by Eric, but the inside coloring is Dave Stewart.
Oh.
So it looks absolutely gorgeous.
He's perfect for that.
Yeah.
When I saw that, I didn't know you were doing that until later, and then I was like, oh, that's perfect. Eric Powell's so good.
Eric is and the nicest guy too.
Yeah.
So we have a bunch of other books that we haven't announced yet coming out in this Marvel Arts line, but we'll announce them closer to publication. But those are the first 2, the next 2 that are coming out.
I'm super excited.
I'm so grateful that you guys were part of it. I can't wait. Like we have a lot more coming. We have a new Alex Ross thing we haven't announced yet, but that will be out and announced soon. I think that he's pushed the boundaries of what he's done as a storyteller and the format of the book. It's still like 8 by 11, 64 pages. No, it's actually not. It's 112 pages. But he is trying something artistically different and also format-wise very different. Still within that scope. So you'll find out more about that. I think in February we're going to announce it to the world. So, anybody have any more questions? I think we're just like 2 minutes away from wrapping up. Yes.
Do you have favorite monsters after all this remarks?
Me or him?
Do we have favorite monsters? Of course I can't remember the name of it, but the one with 2 heads?
Oh, yeah. That's the 2-headed thing. That's just called the 2-headed thing.
The 2-headed thing is really, really great. Especially the way Mike drew it and colored it. Like it's,
Yeah, no, it's in another page. It's one of them that's going to stop us. My favorites are Goom and Googam, son of Goom, who fight Iron Man in this, and I've always loved them because Googam, son of Goom is hilarious as a name, but also they wear diapers. Like all the space monsters from the 60s, they all wore purple diapers for some reason, you know? And I just love the image of like, you know, these guys ready to crush you and they're wearing diapers. So that was always cool. But I love all the Marvel monsters because as an artist, it's an opportunity. They're really fun to draw. Like if you draw a pretty girl and your line misses by a millimeter, she's an ugly girl, right? Your line misses by like an inch, it's just a cooler monster, you know? So.
I don't have a favorite monster, but you left out the villain of the story.
Oh, Loki.
Loki's, and he's a great. I don't think you mentioned. Did you?
Yeah.
I might have gone into my happy place. All right. Well, I think that's it. We're going to be. They're going to be signing the rest of today and the weekend. God, I can't remember the name of the booth, the number of the booth.
We're at 1902, I think.
1902. There you go. So, and yeah, stop by, pick up a book, talk to Michael and Chet. Thank you so much.
If you buy a copy of the book, we'll all sign it, and I'll do a little sketch in it. Thank you very much for attending this panel.